Hey everybody, welcome to Talk, Teach, Play. My name is Aaron Locks. I'm the CEO and founder of the National Academy of Athletics, and I'm excited not only because of my guest today, but the topic is something that really hits home with me, and that's the benefit of youth sports. Now, I know there's a lot of people who are going, well, we know this, but I think once we talk a little bit more with my guest here today, you're going to get a little more in-depth conversation. So Kevin, man, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, brother. I appreciate it. Really do. Excited about doing this with you, my brother. Really.
Yeah, good stuff.
Really.
You know, a lot of people don't realize and probably don't know the depth of our relationship going back to way back when down in Mill Valley, California. But we'll get into that a little bit. But before we kind of get to the topic in depth a little bit, just so I can kind of tell everybody, you're the TPD, right? The big dog, so to speak. But give a little history so they understand the perspective that you're coming from, because maybe this will help everybody out a little bit. So go ahead, man.
Well, you know, I know one of the questions you wanted to ask me is directly related to my coaching experience, but I want to take it back a little bit, a different step. I want to go back to, I come up from a family, I have 8 foster brothers and sisters. 8. So my mother, I was the biological child of 8 foster brothers and sisters, and I come from a family that was very sports enthusiastic as well as politically active. So it kind of formed my whole thing. Sports, take care of your community. Sports, take care of your community. So I grew up in that kind of an atmosphere. 16 people in my house, talking about how to work with a team. Wow. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and give up some of your own individual stuff. You know, that was my life. And then in 75, when I graduated from high school in 74, and I don't know if you know this about me, but I tried out for the College of Marin basketball team, and I actually made it. And then I decided I was still too temperamental to play, so I decided to give that up for a minute. So I wasn't quite mature enough.
What the heck?
So 75,
okay.
Right? So in 75, I was offered a coaching position, coaching Babe Ruth baseball. And I think subsequently, a few years later, that's actually where me and you connected.
Absolutely.
I was your coach in baseball, right? So, so I started out there coaching 4 or 5 years there. And then I started having kids, so I took a different turn. I thought I was going to build this coaching crescendo career into a college thing and do all this, but I really then decided to focus on my own kids, because I realized that at that time, I wanted to be the one who coached my kids and showed them the rights from the wrongs, how to be a team player and still get your individuality going on. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is I didn't really trust anybody else to do that based on my own experience. So I subsequently ended up coaching all my kids in various forms. And then me and you reconnected again as I went on this 10 and 12-year coaching odyssey at the high school, where I got real heavy into AAU and competition and craziness.
Superstar Invitational Basketball.
Superstar Invitational Basketball camp. Great parts of my life. Very intense, though. That was the intense part of my coaching career. Very intense stuff. And, you know, rekindling with you was one of the best things that ever happened to me, because you were running the sports camps and you were a referee. So we were always on the other side of the line, right?
That's another show we'll put together.
That's another show about calming Kevin Lowry down on the sidelines, right? So that's a whole other show. So, you know, that enveloped about a total of 30 years almost of coaching. In very many different forms. So that's that. And then I've also been in the social work business for 36 years. And now I'm the treatment program director, running foster homes, emergency shelters, crisis things. And so that's kind of my story.
Right, man. Okay, so perfect. So you framed it right. And what I love about this is we talk about the benefits of youth sports. Right? I mean, the Talk, Teach, Play channel is all about everything youth sports. And my goal is that if you're a parent, if you're a coach, if you're an administrative league, whatever it is, you're going to come to this channel. You're going to get some insight that can help them out. What I love about your perspective, man, you think about where you grew up, right? Your coaching experience, and then you got your master's and your education, all these things you're doing. So to me, man, it's like, here we go. Let's dig in. You know what I'm saying? So let's do this,
absolutely.
Right? So, when I think of the importance of youth sports, there's so much out there that, in my opinion, that's portrayed as negative. The parents are overbearing and all that. And don't get me wrong, we know they are on a lot of levels, right? But let's just start from the premise of, in your mindset, give me 2 or 3 things that you think that you have run to in your experience that maybe are key benefits that kids gain from participation in youth sports. What are 2 or 3 of the top things you might?
I think a general statement in that area is I really want to say, and I don't mean to over dramatize this, but I can absolutely say that sports was a lifesaver for me, and sometimes literally due to my background, where I lived, what happened, and the concept of having a place to go to socialize
Yeah, right.
and work with and learn the difference where my individuality had to take a back seat to the team concepts, and that was difficult challenge at times, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it literally saved my life. It taught me so many lessons. It taught me how to be with people, how to work within the construct of a team, brought me out of my shell because I was a quiet kid.
Mhm.
So it gave me self-confidence to then and then that manifests itself in all parts of my life.
Right,
Sports
yeah.
was a vehicle for me to jump off of to really do everything else I've done in my life, you know? And we talked about, you know, depending on coaches and the adults that are involved, sometimes that's a, you know, minefield to navigate some. But I was very lucky to have some really, really good mentors
Yeah.
to give me what I need, especially when you have an absent dad sometimes. I mean,
Yeah.
you understand that experience.
Yeah.
And I just think it teaches social skills. I think teamwork. And it also teaches you, I think we talk about this all the time, right? Not developing character, but revealing character,
Or
right?
lack thereof, right? Yeah.
Oh,
Fair
lack
enough.
thereof,
Yeah,
right? Lack
right.
thereof. So I just think it's a wonderful vehicle to build self-esteem, to teach teamwork, have kids learn to work together, especially in the society now where I think we've become a lot more individualistic rather than team
Right. Yeah.
oriented.
Right.
I still
Yeah.
think it's a
Totally.
great vehicle for that. For
Yeah,
sure.
so you know, like you mentioned, so you know, my dad left when I was 3, right? And so I'll be honest, man, if it wasn't for Coach Islis, you know, teaching me baseball and starting out, I don't know where I'd be. And I know you've had coaches. We've also had some coaches that really were kind of schmucks too, right? I
Right.
mean, that,
Right.
that but you know what I think it taught me was, okay, when I worked or you know got to play for Al Lunan, you know how he taught basketball versus maybe some of the other coaches. There's different life lessons you can pick up from those. Some of those are what not to do. You know what I'm saying? Like when
Right.
you're over the top, but that experience also has prepared us to deal with life because life isn't fair, right? Life doesn't work like that all the time as well. So in your daily job, like right now, I mean, as a treatment director, a program director, right, you're probably dealing with kids that maybe don't come from traditional background, right? Is that fair to say? Give
I
me
would
just
say,
a
yeah,
snapshot of that, man.
a lot of single parents. And I don't know what is normal anymore, what is not, so to speak. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
But
yeah,
a lot of drug abuse, a lot of sexual abuse, a lot of violence, a lot of things like that. So not only are these kids dealing with just the normal things that kids go through, they've
right,
also had these barriers and traumas that have happened to them that have been put in front of them. So um, there's many things, you know, I'm always looking for things to get kids engaged with to build their self-esteem and make them feel worthwhile.
yeah,
Um, and because I'm a sports guy, it's always my default.
right,
You know, I've had to learn to open myself up a little bit, but sports is my default because I've seen what it's done to me and so many other kids
right,
that trying to get them, it's a great self-esteem builder if it's done in the right way. And
yeah,
so, yeah, so I believe wholeheartedly in sports being a vehicle,
yeah, love it.
especially for kids who have less, who have had harder times,
Mm.
who have and had more challenges in their life for
You know,
sure.
there's something about it. It's almost like a great equalizer. You know, I was thinking about this on one of the other conversations I had recently with Dr. Mike Herbert from Western Oregon uh, College, and we were discussing a little bit. In fact, if you're watching this, you might want to subscribe so you can get some of the updates that are coming around as
Yeah.
we go forward to some of these conversations. But it's interesting just thinking about what doesn't matter what kind of family you come from. The money, yeah, important maybe to get to travel, whatever. But the bottom line is, Kevin, when you and I step on the court, it don't matter, does it? Right?
No,
It just
no.
doesn't matter your history, your background, or whatever. The bottom line is you got a job to do. Can you do it? Your athleticism, all these other factors. In fact, when I spoke to Michael Stone a couple weeks back on one of these conversations as well, he was talking about he didn't even play sports till he was 12 years old, and he played in the NFL.
Yeah.
And for him, he wasn't introduced to it. It wasn't until he got around his friends and said, okay, here's the opportunity. So there's really no history or background that sets you up for it. Really what it's about is is where do you start and what's the journey going to look like, right? So let's start with the little guys. So if I'm a parent and I'm thinking, for me personally, I believe there's no better life skill teaching tool than youth sports. That's my belief, right? Just my take. Granted, because I've been through it and we're.
I agree. I agree. I think we're on the same page.
But if I got a 4 to 6 year old, right, I got a little dude, and I'm thinking, okay, you know what? Man, sports is so competitive. It's over the top and this and that. What do you think? Like, where do they start, and what are some of the lessons that I should be looking for as a parent at maybe that age in the development? What do you think about those young guys?
Well, I think one of the things we've gotten so hooked into the competitive part of the game. And don't get me wrong, man. Me. I love to compete. I love to win more than the next guy.
Yeah, right,
go
right.
through the brick wall, all that stuff I get. But there's a time and place for that.
Okay.
And that's not when you're 4 to 6 years old.
Right on.
I mean, me and you have had many conversations about the pureness of play.
Yeah.
Right? Where when we were growing up, my fondest memories, and I'm sure for you, is out on the blacktop on a Saturday, playing all day long, just running, playing with the fellas, doing the thing, playing. We've lost some of that pure play aspect of it, and I think sports had started to drift in to, even at 4 to 6, man, we're gonna hone down the total skills and the winning and the losing. And how about we just let them learn to be with each other and play and learn to love the sport?
Yeah.
I think that at that developmental level at 4 and 6, forget the pressure. The kids bunch up in soccer. They do weird things. Let them enjoy the experience, learn how to play. Later on, you can teach them all the things you need to teach them, but let them enjoy that process. I think we put way too much emphasis at an early age on the winning and the losing and the structure. Let them have some fun. It's something that I really believe in.
So I remember I was I was the umpire in the San Francisco Giants television commercials, right? I guess I have a face for a mask. But I was sitting there talking to the infielders, and Buster Posey, the catcher for the Giants, came to me and said, we were talking about what does it take to get a kid to potentially get a chance to play at high school, varsity, college, or get paid to play. And they were talking about determination and all these other things. And Posey came and slapped me on the shoulder and said, it's passion. You got to help the kids fall in love with it to develop a passion, right?
Awesome. Yeah. I totally agree with that. And what we've done, we've been guilty of sometimes, and that's why I so appreciate what you've been trying to do with your company and what you've been doing with the kids, is we suck the passion out of kids by trying to drive home or lecture or teach too much at an early age. You know what I mean? Let them get the bug. And then the ones that want to learn really how to go for it and be something, take those kids and then do that with them. But don't take away the passion of the game. We have a tendency to want to do that sometimes. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And what's hard too is, I remember some of my favorite time when I was little is like I would shoot and my mom would just rebound for me. And you know what was cool about that? She was a fast runner. Just ask her; she could run like the wind, right? But she wasn't super athletic, right? Mom, nothing against you, but but the deal was actually she probably was athletic, just not training sport. But she did play basketball when they used to 3 on each side. Anyways, long story. But the gist of it is the relationship, just having one-on-one with my mom, where she just passed the ball back to me and I shot it, and she never said, "Hey, Aaron, do this. Put your elbow in," nothing. She just basically rebounded and passed me the ball. To this day, 50 years later, man, I'm still going, man, that was like, right?
I think that's the point of what we're talking about here. There's a time and a place where, as I started getting into high school in the AE, all the elbows, the fundamentals, because I'm a big fundamental guy and I believe that. But it's like, damn, it was just nice. That was the great thing about being in the playground. No one said, "Hey, Lowry, your footwork's not in the right place." And, and my dad's trying to tell me at 5 years old, if you really want to get this, you really got to learn how to. It's like, I just wanted to love the game.
Yeah.
And I want to love the game. And it's just, nobody's talking to me. That's a great example. She's not talking to you. She's just there with you. And you're enjoying your moment, right? And that's awesome stuff.
At the National Academy of Athletics, we run a parent-child program, and it's amazing to me how many parents literally don't know how to play catch with their kid, whether it's a football or baseball or whatnot. They're not sure, am I supposed to be teaching? Am I supposed to be guiding? And really, go back to the famous baseball movie, Kevin Costner, hey dad, let's have a catch, you know?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
my dad
yeah.
wasn't around to have a catch, but I remember Coach Islis, man, you know, he'd pull me aside and we just had catch. And yeah, he'd say, hey, you know, hold the ball this way a little bit, but then we just had a catch. And there's just something about that. I think that, man, at that 4 to 6 year old, you're right. I would say parents, if you're listening, or coaches, even if you're coaching with the little guys, man, it's gotta be fun. It's gotta be a lot of movement. It's got to be like, for me, I think small-sided. What I learned coaching through my journey is small-sided, man. You know, because then it's not overwhelming. It's not full court. It's just little 3-on-3, man. You know, soccer. Let them score short field, score as many times as they can, and celebrate and having fun, and you know, and then progress forward. Right. That's a big one, man.
Well, and I think you brought up a good point. Let's talk more action. Because let's developmentally, let's say you're trying to lecture 4, 5, 6-year-old kids about stuff. They got you 5 seconds and they ain't listening to what you're saying anyway. It's a waste of time. So the more you can create that environment of movement with less talk, and let the kids do their thing. And that's where the kids are going to go, oh, this is fun. No kid likes to be sat down, talked at by an adult or a coach all day long. It's just not happening. You know, so I think that's a good strategy.
Good way to go. All right, so let's switch to the next age group. So now 7 to 10 is kind of that next age group up, right? So now they play a little bit, maybe 2nd, 3rd grade. They're joining CYO basketball or Little League baseball, or excuse me, or whatever level they're at. So now let's talk about a couple things. One, first is like what can they be getting out of it now developmentally too, right? There's a kind of different point of that as well.
Well, I think there's a transition then at that point. I think if you, let's say you're starting kids at 4, 5, 6 years old, and then they continue to want to move forward in the sport. Okay. I think that's the age where you do start giving them some instruction and some fundamentals and some concepts, and once again, still remembering they're 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds. You don't want to go too heavy into it, because you still don't want to take the joy of the game away. When you start getting into, which I know we're going to talk about at some point, you know, junior high and high school, you know, it drastically changes at that point, in my opinion, to some degree. And I just really think in 7 to 10, it's really when you start just making that transition into a little bit more structure, a little bit more instruction.
Okay.
Yeah. With also, and it's one thing I think that we forget sometimes, you know, that whole concept of for every positive, and every time you say a negative, you have to say like 5 positive things. Right. I think we forget that sometimes, to continue to pump the kids up on effort and passion or whatever it is. And I think it becomes really important as kids start to move through the process, that as we drive them harder, we also build up their self-esteem with giving them a lot of atta-girls and atta-boys. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you know, Coach Wooden taught me a couple of things about teaching the right way. And he said a really quality coach, leader, parent is someone who can create positive change without causing resentment. And that's a big one, right? Isn't that great? Do you think about that? Because, man, I see so much where 3rd and 4th grade, and now they're traveling to other states to play baseball or whatever they're doing. And again, I get it, man. There's some, but the reality is, to me, it's about learning the fundamentals, learning the rules of the game to develop confidence, right? Because that's a big piece of it. You said it yourself. You're kind of a quiet kid, right? Shoot, I know I was the smallest kid all the way till 8th grade in my class. You know what I mean? So how do you come out of your shell? How do you get that confidence? Well, a lot of that is developed. I think sports really can reveal that character, but it also helps him to kind of understand. So as a parent, here's what I say: be careful, man. Be careful what you're doing, because you can't make the season amazing for your child, but you can ruin it for them, right?
I totally agree with that, because if you don't ruin it, and if the coach is in line with what we're talking about here, it becomes a total positive experience. Right. But you can screw it up.
Yeah.
You know, you can screw it up. But if you let it take its course, it's interesting. And I just want to make another point about just in general here, and I think this is really important. You know, even with the work I do with foster kids and with athletes and everything, kids always learn that you have an expectation for them. There's some kind of expectation.
Right.
And then kids basically want to please and do your expectation. I've always found it important to make sure the kids know whether they're playing good or not playing good, or good behavior or bad behavior, that I've loved them no matter what.
Right.
You know what I mean? I think it's important that we're just not judging them on their performance or whether they got their footwork correct or whatever. Because when you build that relationship with somebody, your ability, it's a self-serving thing too, your ability to get something out of them really exponentially goes up, because they're going to go, this person really cares. When they talk, I got it. I want to do it. You know, and so I think coaches and parents have to understand that they can have a huge impact on that kind of thing. And like you say, they can destroy it too if they're not careful.
You know, during that time, that 7 to 10-year-old age is the time for me that, and I coached both my daughter and my son in a lot of sports, but what I found was when someone else was coaching them, right? And, you know, I'm watching, right? Right? That's what we do. But I tried to get in what I call like-minded, so that I wasn't undermining what the coach was saying. I was trying to understand, all right, this football coach is saying this, so then I would support that, so there wasn't confusion, right? Especially in that age group, that 7 to age group, right? And support the coaches, right?
I agree. Yeah, I agree. You can't undermine that. So even if you think a coach is a little bit aligned, how can you reframe it? I mean, how can you reframe it so your kid or whoever you're working with can hear that in a different way without undermining that other person? Because when you get that split, that becomes a horrible situation also.
Yeah, for the kids especially. And then I think that's where the pressure changes, and then it's not fun, right? And then the expectations are not clear. And, you know, when there's confusion, all that, that's when the kids are like, yeah, I'm okay. I'll step out of that. And I'm not even talking about the overbearing parents.
And you know this, and I had to be really careful of this, is because I was a coach all my life.
Yeah.
I was really never always, and there's something, a little bit of regret, that I was never really a fan when I was watching my kids, because I was always, in my mind, I wasn't saying that, but in my mind, I was always coaching and then going to grab them inside and go, look, that was great, but I got something for you here. You know what I mean? I could never, drove my wife crazy because I could never get my mind out of it. But I also know we should never put kids in the enviable position of me as a father and a coach, contradicting or putting them in opposition with their coach and creating a dilemma for them of loyalty.
Yeah.
Not great either. I think, parents have to be careful with that also.
You know, it's interesting. So behind you is a picture of Rick, and I think that's from the fantasy camp, right?
Yeah, it is. Okay. It is.
So I had a conversation with Rick on one of these. Yeah, there you go. And it's funny because, you know, he had 5 boys that got NCAA scholarships and have all played professionally. Not bad, right? I mean, what record, the whole deal. But it was interesting when I asked him about that same kind of conversation, and he said it's a blessing and a curse, because if you're a parent that kind of gets it, you know what I mean, and you've gone through this a little bit, part of the struggle is that now I'm at a position in a place where I know better. So you're watching your kid and go, man, they're better than that, or they should not do that. So it almost takes a little of the fun out of it too, right?
Yeah, it does. It does. It really does. I think, like I say, I think that's the little regret. I never enjoyed that as much as I might, as just being a parent fan. I was always a parent coach. It just came with the territory, you know.
Right.
And so that's okay.
Guilty.
Right. You know, you got to own what you own, right? You got to own what you own, you know.
So 7 to 10, I think that's when you got to start, you know, looking into camps, looking into clinics, looking into some training. I do know that, you know, while my kids, and I obviously coach, I can help my kids, but you know as well as I do, at that point, another voice is probably good, right?
Absolutely. I totally agree. I stopped coaching all my kids, and maybe a little bit later by the time they were 11 or 12, because I felt like I had given them established the boundaries and everything, where I felt like they could take care of themselves with other coaches. Yeah. And they needed to stop hearing from dad at home,
right,
and on the sports field. And they had to listen to me at home, so I had to get out of the coaching business with my kids.
Yeah, right. So they know what hat you're wearing. Absolutely. Okay.
Exactly.
So now we start getting to the junior high or maybe the high school piece, right? And so the game's changed a little bit, right? It's the same game, but now all of a sudden the expectations, the pressure kind of changes for that. So you give me a little bit about that. What's your thoughts on now that change happened?
Yeah, that's something that's very interesting, because the last 10 or 12 years of my coaching career, if that's what you want to call it, was a pretty intense, taking that girls high school varsity, trying to build up a program that won one game, and then we were averaging 18 wins a game. And then I lost my mind and decided that AAU was the next best coming up thing. And, my wife was the basketball widow for 8 to 10 years, and it became very, very intense, very driven. And I coach like that. I coach my kids to go through the brick wall and to learn the fundamentals. And if you're good, now's the time, if you want to be here, the way the world is now, we have to compete. And if we're going to compete, we have to be ready to go. There's some real blessings and curses that come along with that. It teaches character, it reveals character, it does all kinds of things, but you lose some kids along the way too, if you're not careful, because it does get intense. And then the expectation gets raised, and sometimes certain kids just can't meet that expectation. And I think as a coach, you have to be able to coach to every common denominator on your team. If you choose to do that, you've got to be a little bit of a chameleon and do that. But I do think that's where the metal starts to meet the road, where things start to separate, and the kids who are really serious about the sports, they're there for a different reason, maybe than we're just kicking the ball around from 4 to 10 years old or whatever we're doing. So it changes a lot.
Yeah, and they got to understand it's now, it may not be equal play. You know what I mean? There's a lot, you got to earn your right to get on the court. There's lots of different factors that are there. It's still, to me, the lessons we get out of it. All right. So, but ultimately, obviously, the longer you play, the higher level you go, the more competitive it is, the expectations change. Now let's back up before we go forward. So now, specifically, again, you've been working with kids, 30 plus years now. I'm not just talking about the coaching side. Now I'm talking about your day job, right? One that pays the bills. So now you're dealing with families that are, let's say, dysfunctional. I don't know what functional is, but let's say dysfunctional. Right. Think all the other factors that are there. So how important is it that kids, I know to you, but how important is it to kids? And what do you want a child, let's say it's a kid that's 9 years old and the family's divorced, how important is it? Like, what do you think about that? How important is it that he get involved in sports?
Well, I think like I told you before, sports has always been my vehicle. So that's where I go, because I think it's, it saved my life. I've seen it save other kids' lives. I think it's important. It's even more important to those kind of kids because, generally speaking, those youth, kids, whatever, don't really have a mentor. Don't really have anybody guiding them. Yeah. And in our business, it says all it takes is one. Yes, would it be great if it was the parent? Would it be great if it was the grandfather, the mother? That's great. But sometimes that's not the reality of the situation. So all it takes is that for that child is to have one person who influences their life in a positive way that can jumpstart them into some kind of positivity in their life, even though they come from huge dysfunction. Not a better place to do that than sports, if that's what they're into. Yeah. I mean, and that's why the coaching community, and this is what I really appreciate about what you're doing and all the teaching you've done with coaches and even refs and everything. That's a huge responsibility for us to understand that. Yeah. That we are, whatever you want to call it, role models, mentors, I don't care what you want to call it. We are important. Don't miss that opportunity to be that mentor for that child that has had nothing. And when they go home, it's not going to be there, but their interaction with you could be the key to them having success later on in their life. And
it could just be, that might be the best part, the only good thing they got for the day. We don't know what is going on in their household. We don't know if they're going home, what do they call it, food insecurity or whatever else is going on in their life, or dysfunctional, or 5 people in the same bed. Who knows what experience they're having to go through, right? You just don't know. So what a great space to give them, to make them feel safe, to give them a little joy, to make them feel a part of something. I mean, what scares me right now, and I've been kind of watching the social and emotional challenges that our kids are going through. You know what I'm saying? So the lessons that our coaches can bring forward is so important, right?
I totally agree. And what I would encourage all coaches to remember, and sometimes I needed somebody who was like me and my wife kicking me in the rear end to go, dude, I get it, your drive to be good in the fundamentals, but don't forget their kids and don't forget their people. And so it's important to teach the 200 fast pass and the drop step and all that kind of stuff. but it's just equally as important to remember every day to step aside and go, well, how's their psyche? How
Yeah.
are they? Am I giving something else to them besides just I'm like they're robotic and they're a machine? Man, if you can figure out as a coach how to combine those two things, it's gonna be self-serving because you're gonna get what you want. You're gonna get your wins or whatever's important to you because your kids are gonna feel so much better about what they're doing that they're gonna want to perform the hell out. So it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, really. It
It
is.
really, you know, Magic, when I ran his camp back in the early 80s, and he gave his little pre-camp meeting before staff went out there, he said, and Magic was pretty competitive, as you know, right?
Yeah.
But he said, we are here to win kids.
Yeah. Great
And
line.
that big smile, I can still visualize, man.
Oh,
We're here to
man.
win kids with that big, and it's like, yeah, man, let's win kids. We're down in Thousand Oaks, man, playing outdoors and heat and this and that, and kids are just having a blast, and we're here to win kids, man. And that's really a big piece of this. And I think that kind of leads us into that's what this is all about, right? I mean, talk, teach, play is a method that I've used that is helping coaches know how to create an environment that's positive for kids, where they get a chance to hear it, they get a chance to experience it, and with directions and corrections, and then sit back and let them just be kids and play, right?
I agree, man. You know, before we're coming on, I was thinking about this. You know, how we get so hung up on, and yeah, I'm guilty of this too. You know, I don't like the L next to the game summary. I want the W, right? But if you've done this long enough, Jesus Christ, if you're winning 6 out of 10, you're lucky. You know what I mean? So
right, yeah.
Forget that. You teach, be empathetic, understand. That will take care of itself.
Yeah.
But the experience of the importance of what you're doing for these children in terms of what impact you can have on them is absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
Which then helps our world, right? I mean, I know I'm getting a little
No, but
here,
this is the thing that I try to explain. I mean, think about this. So 72% of kids in the United States will sign up to play a sport between the ages of 4 and 13. That's a stat, right?
big
But
number.
here's the sad news. 61% will quit. This is from the Aspen Institute is giving these numbers, right? 61% of those kids will quit playing that sport after just 2 seasons. 2 seasons, right? And the reason is it's not fun anymore. It's too much pressure to be successful. Now that pressure could come from coaches. It could come from parents, maybe teammates, etc. But man, imagine if we created an environment. I mean, I think about this all the time. I mean, you're what do they say? North of 50, right? North of whatever number you want.
I appreciate that. I appreciate
fair enough.
Yeah, that's that.
And you're still playing softball, right?
Yeah, I am.
And north of 50, I was still playing competitive basketball or semi-competitive basketball. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, but we got that because we fell in love with competing and playing in a whole different environment because that's what we did. So I think sports, we need to bring that back, and the coaches can do it in organized and structured. But like you said, man, there's a right way to do this where the kids are falling in love with the game. Like Magic said, man, win kids, right?
Yeah, and I agree with that. And you know, one of the things I was thinking about my own kids and what I wanted them to get out of them. And they all played at different levels. You know, I had one daughter who ended up getting a scholarship to Cal Poly for volleyball, and that's all well and good experience, some bad experience, some. But all my kids, no matter what, can handle a ball, can play with the ball. We can go to the park, and they don't have to be the ones that go, well, I'm not coordinated. I can't play. I can't do that. Yeah. They can step in, and they can have moments of enjoyment. It's not about winning and losing anymore. It's about physically you can do it. You don't feel self-conscious. You can do it. You can play. You can do it. That's awesome. You know, that you could just, you don't have to feel uncomfortable in the world, that you can go in a social situation, right? And be with people and not have to be self-conscious.
Yes.
Right.
So what happens if so you're working with a family and maybe, so we got a mom, single mom, and she's not really athletic, let's say, or hasn't played sports, and she's got a kid, and she's like, hey, I want to get him involved in sports, but I don't even know where to start. Like, where do I go, right? And I know for me, man, send him to National Academy of Athletics camps, because getting some fundamental training in a non-competitive environment where the pressure is not there, it's really about learning and having fun. But for you, I mean, I got to imagine you're dealing with kids that how do you from the parent side, help the parent do that? And then how do you help the kid that's not very athletic and I like to play video games, you know what I mean? So how do you get them engaged in sports, man? How do you do
Yeah,
that?
I think one of the I mean, it's interesting you brought up video games because I think one of the challenges now is um, kids not wanting to be physical at all because of the
Right.
video game. So that could be a whole different topic for a different day, Aaron,
Okay.
actually, that we could talk
Yeah.
about. But when it comes to the parents in particular, and I have parents like this, I will mentor them, I will encourage them, I will send them to where I think they need to go. There's, over in your county and out
Yeah.
the state of California, your community is lucky enough to have your operation to do that. Not every community has something like that. You got a pretty special thing going. So, but I've taken kids myself when based on who they are, where I've actually mentored them myself, still at the plus 50 side, still doing that myself if I didn't think, because for me, I look at the kid, I see them, and whose hands do I want to put them in?
Yeah.
Because this is a important fork in the road for them. Ma'am, I'm going to get your kid involved. I'm going to do that, but I'm going to ensure you that they're going to come out of this in the other. Sometimes that has to involve me because I trust me more than anybody else. And that's just the way it is sometimes. And I'm not the greatest or whatever, but I just know through my experience that I don't, in the work that I do, that I don't want to destroy any more self-esteem that's already been destroyed. So I will find resources for them. I will set them up. I will get them involved. And then it's kind of, if I have a child like the video game versus the sports thing, I will probably engage them personally myself because I will already develop the relationship with them. So
Okay.
I will give them bits of increments of some kind of physical activity that I can eventually get them involved in, that they can then separate themselves a little bit from the video game, and they go, I can also do this, not just this.
Yeah.
That's a difficult challenge, I would say, these days.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to put that on. In fact, make sure if you haven't subscribed already, man, subscribe to this channel because Kevin and I, we're going to get back on and have that conversation. But so it seems to me that, and again, we're blessed because we run a lot of programs, whether it's through the NashCab Athletics or wherever. If you can find a camp that is teaching, or a clinic or something that's teaching fundamentals, and try lots of different sports to give the kid the opportunity to have a little success and have some fun, because then their interest will kind of boil up. But I love your idea, man. I know we work with some YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs. There are organizations out there, and you just got to find one, right? And kind of go through the process. But I think that in association with an organization that is teaching the fundamentals and it's funny, they call it the life skills, but really it's so, right? We want them to be, it's more than traditional life skills. I mean, we're talking about kids that are going through depression, all these other factors. What a great place for them, because if they feel like they're a part of something, right? Then it can make all the difference. So
well, and once again, we can we could, me and you could talk for days on this topic. Why do kids go to gangs? Because they want to feel part of something. So let's make them feel part of something that is a positive thing. You know what I mean? And sports is a great vehicle for that, especially with organizations like yours, to make that happen. Let's get them occupied. Let's take up their time. Let's make them, or not make them, but let's instill passion in them where they want to go do that.
Yeah.
I want to go do that. It's rather than being out on the streets or playing the video game. How are we responsible for that? How do we nurture that? How do we take care of that? And I think by our own passion and our own interest, and not saying video games suck, because if you do that, you lose them. Yeah. You engage a little bit on that, and you say, hey, I got this, but how about you come over here and try this with me? How about that? Let's check that out too. So it's an interesting balance,
Well, I think we're kind of running up on time here, but what I want to do is I feel like that if you're a parent that's got a child, and whether you're kind of struggling with them or whatever the case may be, and you haven't tried sports, I would encourage you to find a way. Team sports to me can be the one, because there's so many other values, but sometimes whether it's martial arts or swimming or whatever it is, just something that gets them actively engaged. But I feel like we've got to find a way to kind of introduce it to them in a positive light, and to do it in such a way where they can have fun with that, rather than focusing on just putting them in a competitive league right away and expecting them to, just like throw them in the deep end of the pool and say, swim, man. You're right. Some people can't swim.
No, I agree with that. And I think you hit on something good. I think team sports, obviously that's been our thing. And that's we will always promote that because we feel like the value is there.
Yeah.
But living on Kauai, a big thing over here is like mixed martial arts and everything. That's the thing. So I could bang my head against the wall and want everybody to play basketball because that's my passion and guide my kids to that. But really where they want to be guided to, and and they have to interact and they have to be disciplined. And it's not just about going out and kicking people's whats. It's about being disciplined and using it in a way. So you got to meet kids where they are and find that sport or activity that works for them. You have to be open-minded enough to do that. You know what I'm saying?
That's perfect. All right. Well, so to wrap it up, Kev, if you're okay with it, what I'm going to do is if anybody is interested in finding out more or has maybe some questions that we can get on to you, they can subscribe to the channel. They can go ahead and document below, put some information in, and then my staff or I will get back to them. We can forward information to you going forward, because I know we're going to do another session here in a little bit that'll come up for them as well. But I think that's good. Is there somewhere where they can either follow you, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or social media or something like that, or you want them to go through us? What's the best way for them to communicate?
Well, that's, speaking on the other side of 50, I don't have Instagram. I do have a Facebook account. I'm not even really sure, but I could give up my email address and or my phone number because I'm used to that. I don't know what you want. I can do it either way. And
well, I don't want you to get overwhelmed, man, because you got a day. But here's what I will do. I'll tell everybody, if you want to reach out to Kevin, you can email info@nafa.us, and we'll kind of get that, because next thing you know, 4,000 people are asking questions, and I want to make sure that we
well, and me and you talk through Facebook too. I'm not even sure. So my wife set that account up for me, so I'm not. I just press a button and get in there. You know what I mean? So I probably should get a little bit more astute with this. But
that's all right. We can follow through. But okay, so hey, subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Make sure that you check out nationalacademyofathletics.com. Man, Magic said it, right? Win kids. And I think that's really what we're talking about. Hopefully that you found a lot of some tips and ideas and inspired. We want to inspire more through Talk, Teach, Play to help kids have a positive experience and know all these things. Kevin, man, I really appreciate you spending your time with me as always, man. Love you, man. And I appreciate the energy.
Too, brother. Anytime, man. You know where I'm at. Anytime.
All right, everybody. What I remind everybody, please help kids understand and learn as they go forward in life, whether they're on the field of competition or in life, to always play hard and have fun. All right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Kev.
See you, brother. Take care.